Hello, dear friends. Welcome to our broadcast for the day. It is Kabbalah Explained Simply. I'm Gianni, and this is my first Q&A, actually. It's not my first time teaching. I've been teaching for 10 or more years, but my first Q&A, and I'm excited. I'm excited because Kabbalah really can answer any question about life. In our world, any question about what goes on after our world. So there is an after our world as well that doesn't necessarily occur after we die. Rather, it's an upper world that we can attain while we're still living in this world. But actually, we have to attain it while we're living in this world, or we don't attain it. That's the precondition that was set by the upper force, the originator of our reality. So that's why I'm excited for this Q&A and to meet all of you and hear from you, your questions, any questions that you have about the world, about the wisdom of Kabbalah. There are some questions, let's talk about questions. There are some questions such as, what is the meaning of life? Seems like a really clear question, right? And Kabbalah claims to be able to tell us what is the meaning of life. But can Kabbalah really answer that question? The truth is that you never get an answer to this question in the form of words. You get an answer, so it's like the upper force. There's a creator of our reality. He's called creator because he creates what's happening before us. In my perception, it's all being created. And it's not that he created it once and now he's out of the picture. Rather, in each moment, it's being dynamically created before me, according to a program. And we have many questions about life. We stop asking them after a while and just get into a routine of, this is my life. I wake up in the morning, I go to work, I got a wife, a husband, kids, whatever it is, and that's my life. And the meaning of my life is to do the best that I can and succeed as much as I can and avoid suffering and move towards pleasure. And that's where we usually stop. There is actually a meaning, like a purpose to all of that we're going through. And sometimes this question pops up in us. Usually it's just when we're children, and then we kind of forget about it because they tell us what the meaning of life is. The meaning of life is to go to school, go to college, get married, get a job, succeed more and more and more. That's my meaning of life. I hate to say it, but this is very similar to how animals behave. It's just at a much higher level. The cow is interested in the grass that it can eat. And it doesn't ask questions beyond the water and the grass that it's eating. And it wakes up the next day and eats the same grass and water, and does so the way its ancestors did so for hundreds of thousands of years. And similarly, it's possible for me to stop at this question, what is the meaning of my life, and just say it's for various successes and avoidances of pleasure in this world. That's the meaning of my life. But actually, is it? There is actually a purpose to all of that. And I will keep going in this trajectory, lifetime after lifetime, until I realize it. But can Kabbalah tell me what the meaning of my life is? It can give broad strokes definition, but the truth is, for me to know what the meaning of my life is, I have to actually experience. I have to experience it. And I have to attain the root from which I came into the perception of this world. It's unique to each one. each person. We have a root that's in what is called the upper worlds, that we have to attain it the same way that I'm experiencing the reality before me now. Therefore, Kabbalah cannot tell each person what their root is. That's for them to do. That's their homework given by life, by the upper force. But we can give general answers. So Kabbalah, when we're talking about questions and answers, deals with the science of attaining the upper reality. So for example, if you go into a physics class, each and every one can be different. This one's beautiful, this one's skinny, this one's chubby, this one's a bit smarter, this one's not. But the physics deal with the laws that pertain to everyone. So if you throw a basketball up in the air, it will definitely fall, whether you're fat, skinny, smart, not so smart. It's going to work for everyone. So the playing field for the wisdom of Kabbalah is that which will work for every single person. What you attain in the wisdom of Kabbalah is unique to you, special to just you, because nobody is like you, actually. So we're going to do a Q&A. And I'm going to take any questions that you may have, and we'll answer generally here. And then after this, we'll do a special private exclusive Q&A on Zoom where students of KabU are welcome to join and ask all of their personal questions there in an intimate setting. And right now we do have a 14-day free trial where you can join KabU and also join our broadcast. You'll get an email afterwards for the exclusive Zoom, and you'll be able to join and ask all your questions. So we're streaming on a few platforms. Please write in your questions, and then they're going to give them to me. But before we get to that, and you don't need to ask about what I'm talking about right now. You can ask whatever you want to ask about. But I really want to just ask this question. What are we doing in this world? What is this? What have we come to after billions of years of development, essentially, and all sorts of progress, as we called it? We've reached a state where the world is again at war. People are fighting ground wars. After World War I, for example, they decided we don't do that anymore. That's dumb. That's not something anybody wants to do. Why? Because we'd been through a bloody, ridiculous war that basically no one won. Everyone lost, some more, some less. We said never again. A few years later, World War II. And now, once again, countries who are developed, sophisticated, democratic, have decided, let's get into a fight. Let's go sacrifice our children, sacrifice resources, financial and planetary that cannot be replaced. Let's go ahead and let's throw a match on everything. We're basically like a couple that fights a lot, that at the end of a fight, they no longer want to fight. They kiss and make up. Everything's good. That's going to be our last fight. A little while later, they annoy each other, and then they're fighting again. And it takes them a while to realize that this is an endless cycle. We shouldn't be together. We fight. We're going to fight, and it's going to be bad. And were we to have kids, we're going to be fighting in front of them. We need to break up, right? That's what you realize with certain people, that there's no hope of making it work with that person. On the global stage, we have a problem. We cannot get rid of each other. We cannot divorce each other. We cannot just eliminate the ones that we don't like. We are actually stuck together on a small planet. But just as an addendum to that, this is planned from above. So it's not just an accident. It's not just something that I'm saying is happening. It's decided from above on purpose for a reason. Like one of those reality TV shows, where they take like the worst possible combinations of personalities and put them like a powder keg into an apartment. Something like that, because we want to film drama. Similarly, reality, the upper force, put us, who are the worst possible combination of people, together on a planet, on one planet with no escape. And that's for a special reason, a very important reason, which we'll talk about. But still, let's look at this situation where we're stuck in this apartment and we need to now either just kill each other or become like one family. And before today, meaning before our times when it was really clear that we got enmeshed and entangled with one another, financially, in terms of food supply, in terms of even weather, everything we're locked in with each other with in an inescapable way. And all that's happening is that we're realizing that a bit more. And that only increases our hatred of others, because the inescapability is imprisoning and saddening and frustrating and really annoying, that I'm stuck with these annoying people. Now, previously, thousands of years ago, we were all one group, like one family, that lived together, more or less together, in one place, and we started to spread out bit by bit. The reason? We couldn't stand each other. Increasingly, like a couple, it's a good example, a romantic couple that at first it's magic, then a little bit annoying. Ooh, I start noticing things about them that annoys me just a bit. And then those start compounding. They start piling up, the things that I hate about them. And eventually I get to that breakup point where I would rather anything than be stuck with this person. That's what's happening in humanity. That first we spread out. The Indians went to India. The Africans, they're in Africa. Chinese, they went over there. The others went over there. We spread all around the world, exactly to the extent that we could not stand each other, right? You have people everywhere. You have people on the top of the globe, on the bottom of the globe, on all continents. We found a way on islands, right, that are far, far from everyone. You have people everywhere. We spread to all of these places. Why? Because I would rather live in an igloo than be near you. And so I live in an igloo now, and you live in Africa, and the other one lives in Japan. And now what reality is showing us, and to the extent that we're intelligent, observant, and informed, we understand that there is no escape. We can't escape each other. We can create some nationalistic barriers towards one another. We can build tax walls, whatever kind of walls we want, trade walls. We can stop doing business with each other. We'll discover that we actually can't. We can't escape each other, no matter how hard we try. And the smart, intelligent, well-informed people who also know what's going on behind the scenes are coming to the conclusion that the solution to all of our problems that are only leading to nuclear wars, which are going to happen, the missiles are in the silos aimed right at your city, and our missiles are aimed at their cities. They're ready to be fired. So the only solution then is to become multiplanetary. So we've already accepted, right? People who are in the know have basically accepted that there is no solution other than to find new planets. Though actually there are no habitable, reasonably habitable, or similarly pleasant environments for us to escape to, even if we had the wherewithal and means to get a new planet. So we see actually how funny this is, right? That we've decided that it's just our nature to destroy this planet. We can't stop. It's already almost completely destroyed and will soon be uninhabitable, but we can't stop. We can't stop ourselves. We can't stop each other. We're going to destroy it. So the only thing we can do is find a new planet to destroy. Just like we have this, we have the trash floating around the globe, circulating our globe. It's part of it's like our moons. We have a few trash moons now. So we, because we ran out of space on the 8th continent, which we have in the ocean, which is just a pile of garbage, truly with, tons and tons and thousands of tons of our garbage. So we're looking for a new place to pollute. So both to escape the unstoppable nature of our desire to consume, because I need a new iPhone every year, and many such examples, right? We just can't stop. I can't stick with the same phone, right? And dealing with that, and then dealing with the fact that I also hate these people. I can't stand my neighbors, my country neighbors, right? For these reasons, we need to escape the planet quickly before we nuke one another, before we blow ourselves up. So this is our situation. This is our situation. So the planet's coming to an end. We can't get along with one another. We'll find we're going to either just nuke each other, and then maybe we'll just see the end of humanity, and then we won't need to worry about it anymore. Or we'll find another planet, and we'll start living there. And people have agreed to live on Mars, by the way, uninhabitable as it is. This is how much we want to escape each other. So there's just one problem with this, is that neither by way of death or by way of escaping planets or by our planet or by dying by way of nuclear bombs, by no means will we be able to escape what is before us, which is having to connect, because remember the reality TV show analogy, we're on a reality TV show with all of the Chinese and the Japanese and the Africans and the Indians and the Israelis, Palestinians, everyone, we're all on this TV show. And there's an observer, there's a director of it who is expecting us to actually connect. As much as for thousands of years we wanted to avoid each other by spreading out, and now we want to spread out to planets, other planets, it won't be allowed to happen, not even by death. And that's because there's a special goal in this connection. I'm not talking about let's create a kindergarten here and let's be nice to each other and have world peace and hold hands across the globe. Rather, there is something special that can happen when, let's say, when we connect, but there are even deeper levels of connection with the other parts of reality. Forget about human beings for a second. When I connect in the correct way to the reality that is around me, in this connection, I can reveal an upper spiritual world. And there is nothing better than this. So let's see. Should I answer a couple of questions? Let's answer a couple of questions. Julie Dehan. Hello, Julie. Great question. What is the purpose or function of emotions? Okay, so the purpose of emotions is that only through emotions can I enjoy. And it's an illusion that I think that I can work in a way that I'm not using my emotions. I can't even solve a mathematical equation without emotions. And this is why many people are bad at math. Why are you bad at math? You're not passionate about it. A number doesn't move you, but a number moves Einstein. When Einstein looks at equations, we can just think about it all day, from morning until night, walking back and forth in a room, and he's truly in heaven. He enjoys, and every number 3,763, there's a specific emotion that is related to this. Just like if I tell you, I could probably tell you Spider-Man, and so, not saying that you're at such a level that you could only get emotions from Spider-Man, but I could tell you an emotion, Shakespeare, right? And you'll get a feeling about it. Well, Einstein gets a feeling from 3.14, right? There's a feeling. And from just dwelling in numbers, he gets great enjoyment. So and this is why we're bad at math, right? Some of us, because I don't get a big bang out of thinking about numbers. My heart doesn't race. And this is how, for me to understand, to truly understand, there's a level at which I could sort of memorize things, but then it's not the math that I'm getting the bang out of. I'm getting the enjoyment from the sense of flow of accomplishing my homework, that it's starting to stick a little bit. That's what I'm getting the enjoyment from. So I'm forcing myself to memorize it. But this is just an analogy for why do we need emotion. Let's extend it. Now, try to enjoy a love affair, but only intellectually, without emotions. This is impossible. And it's because all of the pleasure is in emotions. All of our pleasure is in emotions, and the goal of life is pleasure. And so that's why a movie has to move you. The news, it's all negative, but it has to move you. I get some fulfillment of how I'm going to get safer by watching all these cherry-picked terrible things that are happening. And I know what to watch out for. So that gives me some feeling of the direction of safety in my life is going to be increased by watching this. So in short, whatever I do has to be emotional. And the brain, this cold brain that I value so much and I respect myself so much for my intellect, well, it is something lower than emotions, than the desire. It is something lower because it only serves the desire, which you can also call the emotion. My emotion is a more specific term to refer to what is really desire, which is the essence of reality. All that was created, including all of those crazy things we just talked about with the wars and the history and everything, all that was created was a desire. And the mind is only a tool to help realize the desire. So there were those in history who were interested in developing social systems, new political systems. Well, the desire was there first because I don't like this injustice and I don't like that king. And therefore, my brain, my calculator goes to work to tell me, all right, maybe we could hang the king, chop his head off. Maybe we could overthrow the government. And then I'm going to create a philosophy around that. This is the mind going to work for the desire. The desire comes first. And again, that's because the whole goal of reality, aside from which there is no goal, is pleasure. That's what the Creator created. And nothing besides. He created just a desire that is now appearing to me before me like everything we see. And it's, for now, kind of empty, right? It's darkness for certain reasons that Kabbalah explains. It's darkness. But the goal, which we haven't arrived at, is fulfillment. Not with a mix of sadness and pleasure and only sometimes, until I finally reach the date night where I get to go out to dinner to a fine restaurant. Then I'll finally pleasure always. All pleasure. So that's why emotions are extremely important. That's why we feel them. Okay. What now? Should we answer another question? Why? Let's see. Okay, to be conscious. Question, is there a spiritual root to revenge? And if so, what can we learn? Okay. Well, look, we see in the world that the same countries, take Europe for example, have been fighting each other for thousands of years. And it's like a couple that lives in an apartment together, and the fighting will never stop until they break up, because they lack the method of connection. Now, if I had the recipe for connection, it would be like taking different elements of a salad, let's say a tomato, an onion, lettuce, the dressing, the salt, the pepper. It would be like taking all of these and finally putting them into a bowl and creating such a harmony that is it's greater than all of the individual parts. It's an emergent property, right? Lettuce, gross by itself. Tomato, also not too great by itself. Salt, bad by itself. But when you put them together, and you can't describe to anybody, by the way, who's never tasted a salad. If I tell you that my Yemenite grandmother used to make this wonderful stew, and I start describing the ingredients in it, you still won't have a correct picture. You could try to build it for yourself, but what you can't build is that emergent property that comes out of it. Let's do a weird thought experiment where we imagine that you could see all of the cells of a human body, before there were ever multicellular beings. And now try to imagine to yourself a human. Even if someone tells you that there will be such a thing as a human, impossible to imagine. Why? I can't imagine an emergent property. Emergent, if you're wondering, means that you put ingredients together and then there's this thing that comes out of it that does not belong to any one of the individual ingredients, right? And so with this, I want to continue answering this excellent question from To Be Conscious. However, I want to just jump over real quick to a quote from Bala Sulam where he talks about this. He says, everything in reality, both good and bad, and even the most harmful, has a right to exist and must not be destroyed. Now, just think how opposite this is to what many people, think they're going to do. I mean, all of politics, like all of many things that happened in history. I'm not even talking about Hitler. It was predicated on, well, there's like this person I don't like, and I'm gonna get rid of them. I'm gonna wipe the earth clean, because less than that is just not sufficient for me. Like people, God forbid, sometimes kill their spouses. They just can't even they can't stand for that person to exist in reality. That's how much I hate them. Now, look at what Kabbalists are saying. The opposite. This is really hard to accept, right? Everything in reality, both good and bad, and even the most harmful. So even like what, terrorists have a right to exist, has the right to exist and must not be destroyed or eradicated from the world. Okay. Our only task is to correct it and return it to the source. So that's like a big matzo ball there hanging out at the end. Our only task is to correct it and return it to the source. Okay, we don't know how to do that. That's the whole wisdom of Kabbalah. But this is what we're essentially tasked with here. And look, we can try to eliminate our enemies, people that we don't like, which if it's not another country, we certainly have such at work, right? Or like people in our extended family, we have people, neighbors, people that we don't like, right? And my world would be a better place if they didn't exist, right? It would just like improve a lot. Now, Kabbalah is telling me something different, that I actually won't be allowed. I can be the most powerful person in the world. I can have armies at the push of a button, but I won't be allowed to eliminate anybody. I won't be allowed. And if I do eliminate anyone, it will be a Pyrrhic victory. It will not be real. It will be an imagination to me that might manifest like it manifests sometimes where, we think we killed this terrorist organization, we killed the leader, right? And then they come back stronger than ever, not just as one terrorist organization within a certain country, but now ruling that country, more powerful than ever. But not just ruling, because before we did our thing to eliminate them, they had not sticks and slingshots, but they had some elementary weapons, and now they have multi-billion-dollar inventory of weapons that used to belong to us. Such examples. We're not getting into specifics, but right, this is a real thing that exists right now in our world. And this happened. And this is the way in which if I try to eliminate anybody, my enemies, it'll be an imaginary victory that will seem to me like I did it. But guess what? Nothing changed. It's like you see sometimes if you date, right? If you're unmarried and you're dating people, and sometimes people make this observation that, God, I hate that I always find the same kind of person. They're such a jerk, and they have all these flaws. And every time I try to find someone new, I find that, no, I'm just like dating the same person again and again and again. I date the same person in new skin. Okay, that's just a corporeal example. But to this extent, we will not be able to eliminate anyone. So everything in reality, both good and bad, and even the most harmful, has a right to exist. Don't bother trying to eliminate anything. Don't bother trying to eliminate the leftist. Don't bother trying to eliminate the far rightists or the hard middle or a specific people that you're not a fan of. Don't try to eliminate anything. Not going to work. It's not going to work. It'll just be a waste of my life and my efforts. So, because it, according to the upper force that is upper and controlling everything in reality, it has a right to exist. Okay, so it must not be destroyed or eradicated from the world. Our only task is to correct it and return it to its source. Now, what do you mean by correct it? Correct it doesn't mean that, okay, I'm right wing, and so I want to correct the left wing's attitude to cause them to stop being so stupid and to get through to them finally. No. because the philosophy that a person holds comes not from their upbringing alone, and not even from their genetics. It comes from a deep inner source that causes them to feel more magnetized to one side or the other. And all of our opinions are like this. It doesn't matter how rational. My belief about something that I'm so righteous on this one point for sure, it comes from my inner essence. And there could be other parts of reality revealed that will cause me to look at everything that I thought, and this will actually happen to each and every person, where at one point I'll be above this life and I'll see that everything that I thought was not right. Why? And this is for each and every one. The smartest, whoever you want, the smartest person will see that all of my opinions were not right. It's not that they were wrong, it's that they were not right. Why? Because they didn't take into account a multidimensional reality that I don't yet see. I'm viewing everything in reality from the perspective of a tomato. Or I'm viewing all of reality by the, like there's these 4 personality types, right? Well, there's something like that in truth, in our essence, where there's these different types and admixtures of the 4. But I view all of reality because I'm the tomato personality, and you view all of reality from the onion personality. And that's why we can't see eye to eye. And if we would actually check these roots, these spiritual roots, we would see that out of all the 8 billion people, there are not left, not right, not Democrats, not Republicans, not Israelis, not Palestinians, not Ukrainians, not Russians. We would discover that no, there's actually 8 billion completely different opinions. And if they would be revealed, these 8 billion, each and every one would start his own war against all of the others. And not like that a country could band together and start a war. Each one would start his own war against each and every one. Why is that? It's because the upper force made each of us special, sui generis, completely unique. Why does the upper force need redundancies? Doesn't need redundancies. That's why there is nobody that can replace you, and there's nobody that can have anything truly in common if we come down to the really deep root of who and what I am. And this is the answer to that question that we started this broadcast with, of what is the meaning of my life? Well, I only discover that when I attain that unique root, that I have a special role in creation, in the universe, in reality, that includes other universes too. I have a special role and nobody else can do it. And they're just waiting for me to fulfill this role in a special way that we do through the wisdom of Kabbalah. And no one else can do it. And everyone's waiting on me, and the picture will be incomplete without me. What picture? Well, to that question that I answered before and said that the root of reality is just a desire, well, it's my role in this one cup that's supposed to include all of the pleasure that was planned in the thought of creation, which includes everything and everything, every single kind of pleasure that can exist, the most of which we do not know about yet. And without me, first of all, I won't attain spirituality, obviously. And I'll reincarnate in this world because this is the world that was created just for this purpose. And so there's nowhere else for me to escape to. There's nowhere else for them to put me. There's nowhere else for me to go except this world. And to come back here and realize my purpose. Again, without which, first of all, I won't attain spirituality. I'll just suffer in this world more and more. increasingly with each incarnation, but also it's somewhat ruined for others, right? Like if I have a cup and there's a hole in it, I'm going to lose my coffee real quick. And if it's like it is now, where there's only a small group of Kabbalists who have done this correction, there's a bit of a vessel, we call it a kli, in which the upper light could be revealed. But right now we're missing most of this. So it's the light exists, but everything's spilling out. And so let's say I'm the last one. Well, the kli's pretty much fulfilled, but let's say I'm this last little hole. So it's still leaking, but that's not all. There is in this, like in everything, because this is how our reality is built, where there's an emergent property. Like we said, the human that comes out of the multicellular organism is not what you could have deduced would come from all these cells being together. And when my last little point attaches to this cup and it can no longer leak, the whole experience of the coffee has a brand new quality to it, as extremely different as the jump from inanimate to plants, from plants to animals, from animals to human. This is nothing compared to the difference between the spiritual jump and our world. Imagine how our world might be experienced if you were a rock. Rocks are desires. They have feelings. Totally different from ours, of course, but they have feelings. Imagine how different the world would be if you were a plant. You think they have eyes, they have something like it, but it's totally different versus an animal. And you think you see the world like a snake does, or hear a symphony like a snake does. It's totally different. And these are total leaps in perception of reality. And similarly too, that vessel, without you, without each and every one of us, cannot make this leap to the full attainment of the upper force, which is the pleasure, which is the purpose of life, all that. Now, I could finally circle back to our friend's question. What is the purpose of revenge? Is that what it was? So yes, you don't need to put it back on the screen. So what is revenge? It's just very simply our constant tomato onion feud, salt feud, dressing feud, that we all have these different things about us that relate to the root of our soul in this cup. And what happened is we got close to each other. So as long as and this is why I need to get revenge, as long as I'm in America, I'm in New York, and the person I hate is over in India, that's okay. I don't think about them. For me, it's like they don't exist. Let them exist there on that continent. You put them into the same country as me, now we have a problem. He's influencing things in my world, but we're on opposite sides of the state. Well, I'll hate him from afar. Now, let's get closer and closer. You put us in the same apartment, he's got to die. And this is the truth. This is, unfortunately, as peaceful as I imagine myself. If you would put me, there is a reason why we're on opposite sides of the globe. If you would really put me in a room with them, even though I feel like I love Africans, I love Pakistanis, if you would put them in the room and we would start getting to know each other, then our differences would be revealed, and difference engenders hatred. And so we start acting out against one another. And it's my nature that one who gets me, he got me, I got to get him back. There's no way I can let that stand. Perhaps a principle could guide me to do otherwise, like a religious principle or some moral standard by which I like to hold myself because it makes me feel good. And which is smart too, because I see that it's not good if I dislike my neighbor, for me to pour a bucket of paint on their house. Even though maybe I would like to, maybe I hate them that much, but it's actually not going to be beneficial because what's going to happen? I got them, and now they're going to get me because we can't stand injustice, that what I deserve isn't happening for me. It's not. If I can do something about it, there's no way I'm going to stand for it. And only my power limitations, that I'm not able to really stop anyone, only these power limitations are stopping me. Were I to be given limitless money, power, influence, suddenly I discover that I do have a desire for those things and that I'm on fire, burning with desire to actually use them. It's just that I was limiting myself previously. I knew that I couldn't really control reality. And so I limited myself and I said, I don't care about power. But if you give me the possibility in simplicity, like I can go throw some red paint on my neighbor's house, I'll do it. Unless I'm a bit smarter and I understand the backlash that's gonna happen. So revenge is a product of the shattering, as Kabbalists call it. It's a product of the shattering by which all of the parts of this single desire that used to exist all as one and was shattered on purpose for a reason that we discuss in the wisdom of Kabbalah. All of it was shattered, and thus we hate each other, even though we actually belong to each other. Even though in our connection, there is something unimaginably beautiful. Now, some of us are more hippie and, we actually like thinking about the connection of the world. In fact, the whole hippie movement was an attempt to actually do what seemed like a great idea, which is to live in peace. Let's hold hands. Why don't we live a little bit more like we used to live, like in the forest? Let's be simple. That's a better life for sure. But it couldn't be realized in that way. But the truth is there's something to it. And that movement, just to use it as an example, was us trying to do something like what is actually spiritual, but in a non-spiritual way, that thus will be prevented from above. Just like they won't allow us to destroy anyone, in that same way where there's a prevention from the upper world. In the same way, they won't allow us to reach world peace. They will not allow it to reach world peace, meaning the laws of reality. There's a physics law to me dropping this pin. Well, there's also a physics law, spiritual physics, that prevent us from reaching world peace by any means that have been thought of so far. Communism, capitalism also isn't going to work. There may be a truth to each one of these, but what's actually going to work has to be in accordance with the thought of creation. And it's something that we have to realize consciously, knowing about that purpose of creation and consciously trying to head towards it. And that's why if I try to go for it, if I try to heal the world in these ways, right, by destroying others, or more what we would consider to be benign ways, such as some special new energy, green energy, or by being more liberal or more conservative, or making peace between some people that are fighting by this way or by that way. None of that will be allowed to work, no matter how intelligent the people thinking about it are. It won't be allowed to work because all of those have a tendency towards realizing goodness and correction in this world without actually correcting the problem. The correction of the problem is the true connection between us, which here's why the hippie movement doesn't work. and none of the communist movements or any other movements will work. Not capitalism, not nothing. It's because this cup is not a correct analogy. This cup, well, we could say actually, it's made of atoms, none of which are touching each other. They're not actually touching each other. We want to hug. We want to try to hug each other. Let's hold hands across the world. Well, that won't work because you could touch, but we don't need to touch. And even if you hold hands, the atoms don't actually hug each other, right? There's still on scale a distance like between the two end zones of a football field, and even more than that, between each part inside of an atom. And similarly, what am I saying? The atom is held together by a force. We could only be held together, all those parts that hate each other, by an upper force. There's a force in reality that's willing to do this, and in doing so, make this world look like heaven. Everything you can imagine about it for this world to look like heaven. But we need to know how to draw this force, and that's what the wisdom of Kabbalah is all about. And I'll go ahead and answer a few more questions. See, I love your random questions that are coming from all of these different places, but in order to frame them properly, it takes a bit of time. Let's see. Talent. Talent is asking, are the pieces of the broken vessel still shattering? No, but the distance between them is. The distance is animated by an imagination that I'm having, Talent, that I'm separate from you. This hand, that's part of me. Why do I think it's part of me? Because there's an illusion in reality that makes me believe that this is part of me, but talent is not part of me, and that's an illusion. Talent is actually part of me, much closer to me than these hands. As Balasulam writes here, take a look at this quote from Balasulam. It's from a book he wrote, a special article called The Introduction to the Book of Zohar. And he says, we see a huge world in front of us in all its magnificent content. We see all this, though, not in reality, but only in ourselves. What? Okay, in other words, in the occipital part of our brain, there's a kind of camera that depicts everything we see and not what's outside of us. So my whole reality that talent is not part of me, that's an illusion. Now, scientists are actually serious scientists, renowned scientists, respectable scientists are starting to come to this conclusion. Not quite all the way, but they're starting to understand, the data is starting to add up, and it will add up. And when it adds up, it will prove exactly what Balasulam said here 100 years ago. Exactly. And so, so to answer your question, the pieces of the broken vessel are not still shattering, they're shattered, but the shattering is manifesting. Meaning what we're seeing in our inability to get silicon chips from Taiwan and all kinds of such problems is just a manifestation of how we are different, can't agree, because if we were a family, if it was like my sweet daughter or son, I would definitely find a way to get him what he needs, like ASAP. But we don't want to help the Taiwanese. We don't want to help the Chinese. They don't want to help us because of the hatred, not for any other reason. There's abundance. Everything is abundant. There's solutions in nature, beautiful solutions to much more than solve our food crisis. We don't need any hunger, people. We don't need energy crises. We don't need to give up our new iPhone every year. I'm just giving a specific example, but really we don't have to give up our nice, good lives at all. and we don't have to sacrifice it to this political agenda or that political agenda. We don't need to give anything up. And we can have a beautiful, healthy earth, as well as healthy bodies, healthy minds, healthy souls. And we can come from this world, which will already be beautiful, and from this world attain a spiritual world more strongly than we're feeling this world right now. So yeah, that's the situation with the shattering. Let's see if we have time for one or two more questions. And then afterwards, like I said, we'll have a special Zoom in which you can just ask live or write in your questions in the Zoom, and I'll make sure to get to all of them. Sorry, I missed so many questions. Let's see. Cointa, I'm sorry if I mispronounced that, but Cointa is asking, how can a person correct the flaw that I always find in the other? So I knew Cointa was going to ask this question, which is why I prepared this slide. From the Baal Shem Tov, who says, if you see a flaw in someone, just imagine the weight of this, and if we take this literally. If you see a flaw in someone, it's like looking in a mirror. If your own face is dirty, this is what the mirror shows you. And if your face is clean, you do not see any flaws in the mirror. One sees oneself as one is. So everybody in my life, I don't know how to process this yet, but everyone in my life is actually just images that are being generated by that occipital lobe Bala Sulam talked about. Images that are being generated of my own qualities. It's crazy. And there's a purpose for this, a special purpose. And in this, there's a big adventure in the wisdom of Kabbalah, that I find myself in the most interesting movie that I've ever seen. All of the movies combined even, because it is the most interesting storyline. But I find myself a part of that storyline, that I am the central character, and that this is the truth about reality. And this is the meaning of life. For me to discover that in a tangible, feeling, emotional way, like I can touch the walls in this room, I discover myself in this movie, and somehow, it's hard to imagine, but somehow it goes with the reality that I'm already experiencing, and I discover myself in a spiritual world that is so safe and so beautiful if I am correctly doing this work. And I align myself with this upper reality that it aligns everything else in my world as well. Like I saw the picture of reality in a kaleidoscope, and it's like one of those ugly psychedelic kaleidoscopes where it's just kind of gross. And that's what my whole life was like. And when I align myself through the wisdom of Kabbalah, through the force that works in this special method, in this special study, all of the things align in my world. That's why I encourage you to utilize the 14-day free trial that's posted in the chats. You can give Kabbalah a try. If it's not for you, that's okay. And with this, we're going to conclude, right? I'm really sorry I didn't get to all of your questions, but there were such good questions. I had to expound on them. And if you're joining our next Q&A, which is in like 1 minute on the Zoom, then I promise to get to all of the questions. And thank you so much for joining us. See you next time on Kabbalah Explained Simply.
you.